Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Like a lot of you guys, I was really saddened by the finale of the Ahsoka series. Spoiler alert. I was specifically sad about Morgan Elsbeth sacrificing herself so that Thrawn, the Great Mothers, and more importantly, the tens of thousands of caskets, hibernation pods, whatever these things are, on the Chimera make it off of Peridia and back to the Star Wars galaxy. I'd assumed from the moment we first laid eyes on her that Morgan Elsbeth would just be another terrible Imperial lackey. She was the magistrate of the city of Caladan on the planet of Corvus, a remote and desolate planet in the Outer Rim. It probably looked beautiful at one point in time, but like so many worlds the Empire took over, it has been stripped of resources and now was covered in a haze of pollution, the product of the incineration of the natural resources on the planet. Meaning that this is kind of your typical Filoni planet, you know, it's full of tiny little idyllic villages, full of villagers who are just minding their own business, but because of the close proximity these worlds have to the peripherals of the galaxy, well, they become really easy targets for evil. And so in this way, Corvus is not all that different from planets like Lothal, Ferrix, Felucia, Sorgan, Ryloth, Kashyyyk. Now, Corvus is at the tail end of the Imperial exploitation cycle. You can easily tell what part of the cycle a planet is in by the amount of smog in the air and by the amount of leaves still on the trees, or maybe how stooped over the local population is from oppression. And to make matters worse, Morgan Elsbeth wasn't just your normal Imperial lackey. She had been an industrialist during the height of the Empire's reign. She had been an overseer of shipyards on Corellia, home to some of the largest and most productive factories in the galaxy. And she held that village hostage with an iron fist and a collection of hunter-killer droids and mercenaries. Everything about her reeked evil. From her second-in-command, Lang, to the Beskar spears she used to fight Ahsoka with. It's a complete perversion of Mandalorian culture.
It can also pierce Beskar armor. Its mere existence puts Mandalorians at risk. Mandalorian steel is meant for armor, not weapons.
She's as bad as it gets, but you know what? After watching her so closely in 8 episodes of the Ahsoka series, and finally understanding her motivations in life and why she's like this, I've become not necessarily a fan of hers, but I definitely have a lot more empathy for what she's going through. But before we get there, a quick word from our sponsor. For today's video, ownasaber.com. They have an amazing deal for you that they specially made for the Ahsoka series, and it'll last only until October 8th. If you guys purchase one of their replica sabers, you can get a Padawan saber for free. Own a Saber's replica category features some truly awesome looking hilts and blades. But the hottest thing right now to get is obviously the Samurai, modeled after the pair of blades that Ahsoka Tano uses in the series. And now with her Shoto blade destroyed by Morgan Elsbeth, this might be your best chance to see this weapon again. Ownasaber.com, lightsabers are made out of the finest materials. This dark saber here has a lot of weight in it. It almost feels like the weight of Mandalorian people lies inside of this hilt. And yes, it's a lot better than what you can get at a Disney store, for sure. To take advantage of this deal, simply add both the replica saber and Padawan saber of your choice into the cart, and the discount will automatically be applied at checkout. Take a look at the description down below for more information about this offer, and don't forget to use our promo code EWOK. That's all caps for an additional $15 off. Empathy. Some people call it a weakness. Other people simply describe it as a human trait we all should have. I objectively think that it's just the ability to understand, to get to the truth of who someone is. You know, a while back I was watching an interesting movie called Amsterdam. Tay-Tay's in it, she gets hit by a car.
I think that...
The fascists got her. Now, this movie is actually about a real-life event known as the Business Plot, which involved a bunch of business interests who were trying to basically overthrow the government in a fascist military coup. They wanted to take out FDR in the 1930s, before World War II. Crazy story. But anyway, that's just in the background. At the core of the story was a friendship between 2 wounded doughboys and a very interesting young nurse charged with digging shrapnel out of their bodies. In one of these scenes, the beautiful Margot Robbie describes her love for another human being in just the most poetic way. And it's all about empathy.
When you see someone and you really see them, you see the kid that used to be them. You see the part of them that's vulnerable.
You know, I've been self-employed for many years now, and the blessing and curse of this existence is that I can really be myself all the time, no filter. But now when I actually go out and meet people who are professionals, who have real jobs, I start to notice the difference in how they carry themselves. I can see more clearly the trappings of society, professions, adulthood, and how it really creates a facade over who they are. We all sort of pretend to be grown-ups in one way or another, and I think when we're kids, it's easy to trick children into thinking that adults are something different, right? But when you get older, it's easy to see how people are careful about how they dress, how they sit and walk, how they conduct themselves in polite company, how we talk and self-censor and filter the thoughts that are actually going through our heads, because we fear that we'll give other people an intimate look at who we are. You know, the inner child, the pure, unadulterated version of us. Now, some people have completely forgotten who that child was. Others, unfortunately, have gone through so much that that part of them is lost forever. But the truth is, even the most carefully arranged appearances can be easy to pierce if you actually listen to the clues that people unknowingly drop, or knowingly drop.
What was this place?
An ancient temple built by my ancestors. The Nightsisters of Dathomir.
You're a witch.
A survivor.
And to truly understand someone, you kind of have to search for that child inside of them. And you know, Morgan Elsbeth was probably around the same age as Ahsoka Tano when she went through her own Order 66, you know, the destruction of the Dathomiri Nightsister clans. Although it wasn't really clear in The Mandalorian, the subtle change in her outfit, in her hair, and Ahsoka betrayed to us who she actually was, a Dathomiri Nightsister. Suddenly, her personality, the personality we saw in The Mandalorian, began to make sense. She's one of the last remaining Nightsisters in the entire galaxy. It was 20 BBY, almost 3 decades earlier, when the cyborg monstrosity known as General Grievous arrived onto the planet with endless rows of Durasteel battle droids. It was an existential crisis, one that the Nightsisters foolishly believed that they were prepared for. But the truth is, even with the unification of all the Nightsister clans beneath Mother Talzin, they were just a backwards world, not all that different from Corvus. The tribal nature of their society meant that their population never grew large enough. They didn't have city centers, they didn't have industry, they didn't have large weapons and vehicles or ships. Yes, they were powerful in their own way with their magic, but tricks and gimmicks are no replacement for serious war machines. No matter what Darth Vader says about the Force, you still can't, block a Death Star laser with the Force. Probably can't. And so these Dathomiri Nightsisters, individuals, each and every one of them fell one by one to faceless droids which cost almost nothing to manufacture. The Nightsisters even desecrated the tombs of their ancestors, turning past generations into cannon fodder with the hopes that the undead could achieve what the living could not. In the end, everyone died. One by one, all these sisters who shared communion with the magical Ichor on their planet passed away. I wonder if Morgan Elsbeth actually felt the presence of all these Nightsisters dying when they faded from the Ichor. I often wonder what is worse, to die in a genocide or be one of the last survivors and feel that guilt and helplessness. Is there a burden to continue to live, to continue telling the stories and honoring the memories of all that died? Such a great responsibility. It's no wonder Morgan Elsbeth is deathly serious. There's no half measures with her, no mistakes made. Her execution of the plan to bring Thrawn back was made without any mistakes, really. The theft of the map from Sabine's home, the theft of those hyperdrives, hiring someone as capable as Baylan Skoll to act as security. She is deadly competent. But now that I think about it, her abilities don't just stem from the tragedy of her existence. There's something else about her that drives her. And you see it when she stands before the Great Mothers of Peridia. Her skin. It has a more pinkish and tan complexion. She seems more pleasant, more alive, and that's because she's a human being. You see, the Nightsisters were mostly Dathomiri, which is a subspecies of the Zabrak. Now, they did occasionally let human recruits in, but they were in the minority. And I wonder if she always felt a bit left out or different from everyone else because of her species. I know what it's like to grow up a bit different from everyone else. My parents immigrated here, so they didn't really understand how to teach me how to blend in with American culture. I had to learn by myself, how to fit in. And I think Morgan's reaction to being different was just attempting to be the best at whatever she did. She was a master of Nightsister arts and magic, an industrialist who understood the logistics, technology, and management skills required to run a massive starship factory. She was a governor, a magistrate, a leader of military forces, and a pretty damn good duelist on top of that. It's clear what Thrawn saw in her. I guess one needs to adapt and remain flexible when they grow up different from everyone else, or when they go through a lot of trauma and tragedy as a young person. My only question is it her competence that stirs up that small little guilt or regret in Thrawn's face when he asks her to sacrifice her life for everyone else? Or is it just because he truly likes her and appreciates her?
For the Empire.
With this understanding of Morgan's past, I also understand her steadfast pursuit of power. We talk a lot about characters on this channel who seek power, and the reality is not all individuals seek power for power's sake. Many characters like Baylan Skoll and Anakin Skywalker belong in that category. More often, you just have individuals like Morgan Elsbeth who has simply seen what's happened to the weak and those without power. And so they desire power to protect themselves. You can lose everything in the blink of an eye if you don't have control over your surroundings. The sad thing is that Morgan Elsbeth, after the Clone Wars, would align herself with the Empire. I guess she never realized that it wasn't the Separatists who ended her people, but Darth Sidious, the Emperor. I always felt like during her tutelage beneath Thrawn that would become a glaring issue. You know, Thrawn was always keen on gathering a diverse group of warriors beneath his command. He always enjoyed studying new cultures, and therefore he always found advantages in having a very diverse force. But it was often those the closest to him, these irregulars, that posed the biggest danger to him, whether it was the clone of Ch'baoth or the Noghri assassins he employed as bodyguards. The Empire actually had enslaved the Noghri as well, and so when an opportunity presented itself, one of those Noghri bodyguards ultimately ended Thrawn's life in Legends. I've always wondered what would happen if Morgan Elsbeth realized that Thrawn was actually working for the guy who was truly responsible of the genocide of her people. And I guess that makes her worship and respect of the man even more tragic.
They were. All were honored to make the sacrifice. For you.
It is for the Empire. The security of our galaxy.
It's also kind of sad that it's Morgan Elsbeth that enables Thrawn to return back to the Star Wars galaxy to, restart an empire that ultimately killed everyone she knew. It was Morgan Elsbeth who received the communications from the Great Mother. It was Morgan who figured out how to operate that star key. It was Morgan who built the Eye of Sion and figured out the problem of intergalactic travel. And she did this all without the New Republic even realizing. She did all of the planning, she did all of the dirty work, and she arguably sacrificed the most. It's sad because Morgan Elsbeth is serving her enemy not because she's stupid or anything like that, but because she simply doesn't have access to all of the information. She's put her hope in an individual simply because he's competent and he's relatively fair and he's taught her, I'm guessing, quite a lot up until this point. And despite her one blind spot here, she is a very smart individual. She's a keen student, she's respectful, but she's never afraid of expressing her opinions.
Should we not send more troops to support them?
During this exile, our numbers have dwindled. One might even call this first match with Tana a success.
I see only our enemies reunited.
Let me show you what I see.
I have a lot of respect for Morgan Elsbeth now after watching that last episode, and it's because of her willingness to sacrifice her life and stay behind and hold the line. And she does this not because, she adores Thrawn or she adores the Great Mothers for giving her all that power. It's because she truly adores her people. She wants to honor their memory, and she'll do anything to bring them back.
We require a little more time.
I understand.
You can almost see the kid inside of her when she tilts her head up, and then when her head tilts down, she makes a quick calculation. She realizes what Thrawn's asking of her. And just like that, she makes peace with herself. She makes peace with the fact that despite doing all this work, she'll never see the fruits of her labor. Yet unlike most blind and fanatic fools who are eager to go rushing to their own deaths, Morgan Elsbeth completely understands the situation here. She's under no illusion that Thrawn is doing anything else but just sacrificing her. She's seen him do the same exact thing to the night troopers and many other personnel beneath his command.
Before we lost contact with the flight group.
An acceptable outcome. These are unfortunate, but acceptable losses.
She knows she's being sacrificed, yet somehow, despite being so competent and ambitious, she's willing to let her ego slip away. and commit herself to this. She truly believes that if she buys enough time for those caskets, the Great Mothers will be safe, and Thrawn will help them, I don't know, reignite the flames of the Dathmiri civilization. If they are ultimately successful, I do hope they take the time to at least erect a statue of Morgan Elsbeth, because without her, none of this would have happened.
Death man.
That is, if she actually stays dead.